So, like I said, I was on a warpath. There was something wrong with my kid, and what they were telling me was wrong was not the issue. We were doing everything we were supposed to do for him, and nothing was working. We had physical therapy, outpatient. He walked in with his walker most days. Some days, too tired, needed his wheelchair. God love his therapists. They took to him like bees to honey. And they watched as they gave him everything they had. He kept getting worse. So much so that, I'm not joking you, they called Pittsburgh and said, you need to come down here and watch him in therapy. And the doctor from Pittsburgh came. He watched Patrick, and he saw that what he was seeing in the office a month or so ago was terribly different now. So began the search. He now understood something else is wrong with Patrick. So I'm going to shorten up the story. We might revisit some things later, but we were told that he may have a genetic disease. They took Patrick's blood, my blood, and my husband was swabbed. It was sent away to a renowned education, a university that does full genetic sequencing. We were told it would take about 5 to 6 months. A couple months into the already long ordeal, I got a call from that university, and they said, Mrs. Burton, we're going to halt the testing because evidently the place that drew our blood labeled my blood as Patrick's. So when they pulled blood that they thought was his and got a female chromosome, ixnay on that test. Hence, redoing the blood work and waiting another 5 to 6 months for it to come back and tell us no genetic issues whatsoever within Patrick. What sent us for that blood test and genetics, I do have to share. So they did a small test locally, and it showed that he had or carried a gene for a disease called SCA8. It's not pleasant. It's called spinocerebellar ataxia. There's no cure. You only get worse. It's pretty devastating. I said, well, where do you go for this? Well, there is no cure. Well, there has to be someone. So, once again, the mommy sleuth in me, I found there were several places within our country that did research and test studies on children and people with these types of diseases. I took Patrick to that particular gentleman and refused to see anyone but him at Massachusetts General Hospital. We had an appointment with this man. Lovely, lovely man, a specialist in this disease. He dedicated his life to this disease to be told from him, Patrick may carry this gene, but this is not what it does. This is not how it reacts. And he is not a patient with this disease. Hence the full genetic code, which later proved that man was correct. There was nothing genetically wrong with Patrick. We were once told that he might have something as rare as a grain of sand in the Atlantic Ocean. Oh my God, what do you do with that? All the while, here's a 12-year-old boy who's losing his life. He's losing his friends. His brothers are his best friends. Don't know what to do with him anymore. He can't play. He can't play Xbox. He can't go outside. Can't watch TV. So in the dark, he and his brother Zachary, who were best friends, would just talk softly and share stories. So when people would say, "How's Patrick?" I wanted to strangle them and say, "Why don't you ask me how my family is?" Because one night, little Zachary says to me, as I reached down to give him a kiss, he hugged me and he said, "Is he ever going to get better? Is he always going to be like this?" And I couldn't tell him because I didn't know. He started to lose his vision more and more and more. He could see, but he couldn't understand what he saw. He didn't understand letters or numbers or symbols. They told us after test after test with an ophthalmology specialist, he had a horrible eye disease. Oh my God, what do you do for that? Well, there's no cure, Mrs. Burton. What do you mean there's no cure? There's no cure for this. He will eventually go blind. So at our swimming pool, not long after that diagnosis, Patrick, while in water, was free, came up to me and he said, "Am I going to not be able to watch Matthew grow up?" I don't know. Do you know how hard that is to tell your kid you don't know the answer? Horrifying. So, Super Sleuth Mom, I found a place. They can't treat this disease, but they do study it. And they have case studies. And they're hoping someday to get a cure. It's 5 hours away. I make an appointment with the doctor. We go there. Patrick has tests after test after test, wires in his eyes to test his retinas for this disease, only to be told, once again, he doesn't have this disease. Why can't he see? I say to this doctor. He said, "Oh, there's no doubt he can't see." He said, "There's something wrong with this child's brain. You need a very good neurologist." Who do you think sent us to the ophthalmologist in the first place? A very good neurologist who doesn't see anything wrong with his brain. Our story is so difficult and twisted. It is amazing that every place we went, Mommy would throw up. You know, this started after a football game. Could this have been a concussion? This was the first doctor who said, "There's definitely something wrong with his brain. His eyes are healthy. I can see all the way in, and so therefore he should see all the way out. But our brains are the processors of our body, like the processor of a computer, and it wasn't processing his information correctly." Enter vision therapy. And I will use this lady's name. Her name is Terry Fernandez. You're going to see a video from her later in the series. Terry walked into my house, put down a box and said, "We're going to build you a toolbox. You can't see right. We're going to make your life easy and accessible, and you're going to relearn how to learn, and you're going to build your own toolkit. And when we're done, there's nothing that's going to stop you." She was right. Once he learned a new avenue of learning as a blind child, Patrick began to educate again within himself, within our school district. It was a changing event. Vision therapy. We'll talk about that later with Terry.